So what brings you to Tokyo this weekend?
Holidays.
We're at a school trip here.
Yeah, we both go to the same university.
Well, yesterday we've been shopping quite a lot, and we've been at the temple.
Oh, we went to Tokyo Tower today, and then we went on like a bus tour.
Yeah.
As a person that is researching Shinto and Buddhism, it's nice to see the culture and backgrounds that are going around here, as well as the festival itself, because seeing the actual festival and festivities that are going on is very authentic in my experience, and seeing the smiles on people's faces and how they express themselves towards these gods is very beneficial.
I think we're not trying to do like the typical tourist program. I mean, of course, there are some attractions you have to see when you're in Tokyo, but actually we're trying to kind of, act like Japanese people, like do Japanese stuff and not really be like the touristy kind of guys.
It's often said that traveling is one of the most rewarding ways that one can expand their mind. But with that sentiment comes an almost hidden pressure. How do you make sure that the experiences that you're having are truly authentic? A group of students from Southern New Hampshire University had an opportunity to travel to Tokyo, Japan for a couple of weeks. To explore this question, I decided to follow some of these students and get an understanding for the kinds of things that they were up to.
So my trip to Tokyo was a childhood dream. Ever since I was a little girl, I was always fascinated by the culture. I was always fascinated by the people, by the way of living. And I realized that there were a lot of temples, there were a lot of shrines, a lot of places of religion and admiration that Japanese people have. So I learned about the cleansing rituals that they have every time that they enter a temple. I learned about the Shinto religion and the Buddhist religion that they have a lot. I learned about all the gods, which are kamis. I learned about all the regulations, the rules, the whys, and the don'ts that before I wouldn't have known or would have thought they were really weird. The first thing, when I went out of the station in Akihabara, the first thought that went through my mind was like, I'm never getting out of here, and you're not gonna make me get out of here. So Akihabara was kind of like the center of everything that I grew up with, which is the otaku culture. Otaku is, someone who likes anime or manga. Time passed so fast when I was in Akihabara. I was not able to see everything. I was mainly on the main street, so I could see all the billboards, I could see all the people dressed, I could see all the maids promoting the maid cafes. And I was like, I want to go, but I won't be able to understand them. So my first thought was like, I belong in this country, although I wouldn't be able to understand completely what they're saying. So I've been traveling since I was like, I'm gonna say 5-6 years old. And every time I travel, I've been able to see something new. I've been able to experience something new. I travel back and forth from here to the United States to Mexico maybe once every 2 years. And every time I learned something new about my culture, and I learned something new about the American culture. So traveling is the best way for you to understand humans as who they are. Because I'm not able to understand the way a human in America might behave to a human in Mexico if I don't give the chance to myself to go to these places and understand their culture, the way they are, and who they are.
We're going to a shop in Asakasa. They focus specifically on Tomo-style ramen, which is a lighter, more creamier base. Obviously, everyone knows ramen, cup noodle, all that fun stuff. There aren't any real professional ramen places in New Hampshire or really around. Ramen, for example, is a late-night snack after you've had long days of work to have beer.
I think I'm gonna do the basic shoyu ramen. I'm going to keep it, I want like the base, the torishio. Well, hang on, I actually got it right here. That's the tonkatsu shoyu, which is somewhere on here. It's part of the other menu, clearly.
Food is such an intricate part of our lives. It truly brings people together. It's a point of discussion. It's a point of passion for people. Important to seek out food in other cultures because it helps you understand them. You want to experience the people. That starts by understanding what they have for dinner, what they have for lunch, what they do when they get off from work. It's just such a big part of understanding who they are and trying those new things and exposing yourself to their palates that it's just, you can't avoid it when you're going out to new cultures. And if you do, then you're truly missing out.
Today we are at the Toyota Historical Garage. You know, when I found out I was going to Tokyo and doing a video on Japanese cars, I was looking around for museums and I found this place and it looks amazing. Not only does Toyota have a showcase of their brand new cars over yonder, but also historically significant cars from rally history, from racing history to everyday drivers. So, you know, what cars changed the industry. This is the new Toyota Supra. Toyota stopped making the Supra way back in the late 90s. It's nice to see Toyota putting a new sports car in their lineup. So way back in the 1970s in America, there was a fuel crisis. People were buying these big V8 awesome cars. They looked cool, they sounded cool, but they were not efficient in any way. And that's when Toyota and Subaru step in. They started making these really, really fuel efficient and cheap cars. The difference was that they were reliable and people started buying them in America. I wouldn't say I was nervous traveling. And when we got here, I was absolutely super nervous. I was texting my girlfriend like, I can't do this, I don't know what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna get enough footage. And the past 2 weeks have been awesome, and I don't want to leave. I'm very happy with it. We haven't explored all of it yet, but from the sections that I've seen, I'm really excited.
It was serendipity. I wanted to take a year off between high school and college. I decided that I would study abroad. I took French in high school, and the small exchange company that worked with our high school didn't have any homestays for me. So I had already committed to not going to college for a year. And they said, well, you know, if you're interested, we have homestays in Japan or Brazil. And they told me a little bit about Brazil. That sounded, you know, kind of cool, but I thought, wow, exotic, Japan, that's it. I want to go someplace, you know, way out. And so that's what led me there. I went 1982, 1983, and was a high school student in Matsuyama, Japan, which is a really kind of conservative, traditional part of Japan. I literally had people holding my hands as we crossed the street because maybe I wouldn't know since Japanese cars travel on the other side of the road. You know, sometimes a little cloying, but how did the travel experience originate here at Southern New Hampshire University? Well, this is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I've worked at other universities where I was either a visiting professor or a part-timer, and another faculty member had taken students to Japan, and I thought, well, it can be done. So when Professor Rob McCausland was hired here, and I found about his strong interest in Japan, we started talking about it, and that was just a natural evolution of our mutual interest in sharing with students what we have come to treasure so much.
We have a short life as humans, and I think that if you don't travel, you're missing a big part of what the world is. So traveling is one of my main goals as I have as a human. I've decided that I'm gonna go back to Japan because there's so much that I haven't seen yet, and there's so much that I wanna see, I wanna be able to capture with my eyes and my camera to have them forever in my mind.
Okay, so what about the question that we had at the onset of this? Did these students figure out how to have an authentic experience of Japan and its culture?
The people that are living in that part of Tokyo are managing tourists year round. So in a sense, that's authentic. That's how these people live their lives, is serving tourists and Japanese tourists as well. What they do when they go home, that's a harder thing to get a hold of. And this is something that comes from conversations with other, mostly Americans who have lived in Japan. And there will be things that we have in common, but there are things that are so unique to our experiences depending on where we lived, how old we are, our gender, and so forth, that it can vary widely. But I would say any experience engaged in with an attitude of openness and sincerity is going to be an authentic experience.
Never stop traveling and following that childhood dream that you have.